The House will have under consideration Senate Bill 1150. The gentleman from District 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent to dispense with the further reading of Senate Bill 1150.
Hearing no objection, the gentleman has the floor to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the body. Senate Bill 1150 simply deals with the collection of signatures to get items on the ballot, questions before the people. One of the concerns that has arisen is the collection of signatures happening out of the state of Idaho. And so all this does is make sure that if individuals are going to collect signatures for an issue to appear on the ballot, those signatures must be collected within the state of Idaho. With that, I'd ask for your green light.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 16.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman from District 13 yield to a question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman, yield.
Proceed with your question in the light of your compadre's question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I haven't seen, Mr. Good Gentleman, I have not seen an exception in this bill for military members stationed abroad who would like to participate in the initiative process, and I'm wondering if there's an exception somewhere else in code I'm missing, or are we just not including them in this process?
Gentleman from 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman from 16. This question came up in committee. There is 9 months that they have the opportunity to collect signatures to get an item on the ballot. Currently, there is no provision made for members of the military to sign other than if their deployment is not longer than 9 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from 19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the person that asked the question in committee, a finer point was just put on this for me, and now I do have a heightened concern. Those of us who have served in uniform have been stationed out of country for long periods of time, 12, 18-month tours, 2-year tours, South Korea, Japan. I have concerns that we haven't created an opportunity for them to participate in this process. I understand the good gentleman from 13's concern, but many people who serve from Idaho serve outside of state for longer than the 18-month period. So without an exception to allow for them to participate, I have to vote no.
Thank you. Gentleman from 11.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish there was an exemption for military in this. I spent over 2 years away from home. And if there was a ballot initiative, I voted every time that I was gone. And so because this doesn't carve out an exception, I think it doesn't allow the military to participate in the most fundamental of our rights. And so I'll be voting no.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from 29.
Mr. Speaker, I spent 3 years in Germany, and being able to participate on issues that were on the ballot was really important to me and to my family. It made us feel attached to the state that we plan to return to someday. So for the same reasons that have been expressed by the other two gentlemen, I'll be voting no.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 21.
So debate in favor of the bill. The bill doesn't allow an exemption for gathering of signatures. That 6% required. Folks still vote as they always have. They vote absentee, they vote in whatever manner they choose to, so they're still fully involved as they always have been, and as they are currently involved in the process, so thank you.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 19, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate a second time?
Does anyone wish to debate the bill for the first time? Gentleman from 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman from 13 rise to answer a question?
Will the other good gentleman from District 13 stand for a question?
The gentleman will yield.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you. Just looking at this, when I think of collecting signatures, my automatic is to come to, okay, we're in Idaho collecting signatures for something that's going to be on an Idaho ballot. Can you give any examples of where it's been common practice to collect signatures of Idahoans outside the borders of Idaho, and maybe that would help clarify?
Gentleman from 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good gentleman from 13. Currently, the concern is that there is legalized marijuana in the state of Oregon, Washington, and that the folks in Clarkston The folks in Spokane and the folks in Oregon are over there collecting signatures to get recreational marijuana or medicinal marijuana on the ballot here in the state of Idaho. That question wants to be before the voters of Idaho, that's fine. But those signatures, in my belief, in my worldview, should be collected within the state of Idaho. And that is principally what we are trying to address in this particular piece of legislation. Certainly.
A good gentleman from 16.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to perhaps underscore the question from the gentleman from 13 on my left, one of the ways.
Geographically.
I beg your pardon?
Only on your left, only geographically.
Geographically to my left. One of the things that this is going to prevent, if you are a member of the military and you're stationed overseas or simply out of state, is the ability to print out a petition, sign it, have it notarized, and mailed back to the Secretary of State. That is prevented through this process. And perhaps to the gentleman from 13, geographically to my right, to his point, if Idahoans didn't have to drive across the border to make purchases that they're not able to make in this state, then perhaps this legislature should consider a bill to that effect. Thank you.
Gentleman from 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In thinking about this, there are people who work for some of our companies in different, who may be assigned to different locations around the world for a long period of time. There are people who do religious work who may be gone for a long period of time. So in addition to the military, there are others who will be denied the right to sign initiative petitions if this bill passes.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 7.
Will the good gentleman yield for question?
The bill sponsor yield to a question.
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Forgive me for not knowing, but I guess in today's discussion that makes it legal to ask this question.
It certainly does.
Is there any pathway for military that are out of country or state to get their name on an initiative?
Good gentleman from District 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman from District 17. No, that's the current law. They can't do it currently. They can't sign currently. All this is doing is just making sure that people have to be within the state. If a member of the military is within the state, then certainly they can sign. But we're not changing anything. We're not taking any right away from members of the military. They don't have that right now if they're outside the country.
Well, I didn't know that. Learned two things.
Is there further debate? Good lady from District 18.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the gentleman to my geographic right from District 13 yield to a question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Okay, I guess I'm confused because I thought under the current law they could sign a petition and that's why this law is needed. I mean, if you're able to sign a petition currently when you are physically outside the state of Idaho, then why would this bill be required?
Gentleman from 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady from 18. It's my understanding that there's no process put in place. The individuals that are currently collecting these signatures are hired and are located within the state collecting signatures. So it's my understanding that there's no signature collection effort that's done on military bases currently.
Lady from 18.
Follow up, Mr. Speaker. With a follow-up question,
Will
Mr.
the
Speaker.
gentleman yield to another question.
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, good gentlemen. While there may not be, current procedure that's commonly endeavored and there aren't people hired, it would be legal right now, wouldn't it, for one to, for the person to print out a petition themselves, get it notarized, and mail it in, despite being outside the state. Isn't that correct?
Gentleman from 13.
Mr. Speaker, good lady from 18, I am not certain on the answer to that question.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 19 for
To debate a second time, Mr. Speaker.
second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to...
Does anyone wish to debate the bill for the first time? Good gentleman from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to point out to the body that we're talking about collecting signatures. If an individual prints out a petition and signs it themselves and notarizes it and sends it in, that is not collecting signatures. This bill is targeted toward collecting signatures, not signing the petition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Is there further debate for the first time? For the first time, lady from 18.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To respond to the previous comment?
To debate the bill for the first
Debate the
time,
bill.
you have the floor.
Yes, I wanted to clarify that, in fact, what the good gentleman said is not accurate. This bill says, so you certainly couldn't circulate on a military base, for example, but it goes beyond circulation. It says all petition signers must be physically located in the state of Idaho at the time of signing. So this isn't just about circulating. This says that a member of the military who is outside the state of Idaho simply cannot sign and submit a signature, period. It's not about circulating it outside the state, although that is also prohibited, but you can't sign it outside the state and have it count. So this absolutely would preclude members of the military. This is not just about paid petition circulators or anything. This is about members of our military being prohibited from signing because they are serving outside the state.
Good lady from District 31.
Mr. Speaker, may I ask unanimous consent to debate the bill for the first time?
No, we haven't gone to the seconds yet, so you were in order. You have the
Okay.
floor to debate for the first time.
All right. Thank
The
you.
lady's was a question, and then she's used her first debate just now. So you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate in favor of the bill, I appreciate the concerns that are being raised. I have great respect for those who serve. And I also would like to point out that what we're talking about here is not a civil right. We're not taking away somebody's right to vote, so to speak. What we're talking about is a requirement that's placed on those seeking to get an initiative on the ballot. That's different from a civil right. And so in an effort to gather those signatures, it makes sense for those gatherers to gather them in areas where they have access to large numbers of people. And the purpose is just to show a broad base of support for that particular issue. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong with somebody that might be overseas signing a petition, but this bill is targeted to a particular problem that I think deserves attention, and that is that we have people going into other states and getting signatures from people who are not known to be residents of Idaho. And those signatures ought to be collected within the state of Idaho. I think that makes sense. So for that reason, I will be supporting this bill.
Thank you. Is there further debate for the first time? Then if you're still feeling it, gentleman from 19 for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel it more urgently than before. To respond to the good lady from 31, she's absolutely correct. This isn't a civil right. This is an Article 3, Section 1 constitutional right. This is superior. This is one of the most important things we do. Just because people leave this state doesn't mean they're not citizens. It doesn't mean if they go on a mission they're not citizens. It doesn't mean if they're in the military they're not citizens. They have the right. Secondly, to respond to the good gentleman from 21, my head is spinning to suggest that the process of signing isn't really a big deal. It's that members of the military get to vote on issues of statewide importance. We passed, and I voted against, and the good gentleman on the second floor signed into law this weekend a law that argues just the opposite, that, oh, no, voting isn't just important, but the signature itself is equally important. So if we are going to be principled, consistent, and non-hypocritical, then we have to hold that principle true right now. I urge your no vote.
Good gentleman from District 11.
Thank you, Mr.
Second time?
Speaker. Yes, to debate for
floor.
a second time. I support the concept of this bill, but to me, this is just an affront to those people that dedicate their lives to protecting this freaking nation. And so, by God, there should have been something in here to carve out for the military. And because it doesn't, and I think they can fix it easily, but because it doesn't, I just cannot support this.
Is there further debate? Gentleman from 29.
Debate the bill for a second time.
You have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, although this isn't going to be adding additional information to the debate, I am highly offended by the concept, the argument that somehow if you are outside the state, you're not fully entitled to the rights of a citizen that's inside the state. Whether it's a parking lot or spending time in Iraq or Afghanistan or Germany or Japan in the military or as a missionary for your church, you are still a citizen of this state. Article 1 of our Constitution, Section 2, says all political power is inherent in the people. It doesn't say unless you're in a parking lot in Oregon. We should vote no on this.
Thank you. Gentleman from 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the debate here. I'd ask unanimous consent to move Senate Bill 1150 to general orders to add an amendment to extend this to our military members. We do not want to exclude them, and I'm glad to hear that we want to expand the signature gathering. We had that debate earlier this year, so I'd ask you to move general orders.
You've heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1150 will be placed on general orders.